They told you history was written in textbooks, but history is carved into the dead. Imagine this: 2 infants, born still, their lungs never tasting air, their mouths never crying into the world. And yet somehow their eyes are open in the photograph. 1865, the year America staggered after Civil War, the year death was common. But nothing about this death was common. A photograph, hand-tinted, eerie in its preservation, shows 2 lifeless newborns posed like saints, one resting on the other, eyes fixed forward as if they had already seen beyond. Who arranged them? Who forced open those eyelids, and why? To preserve memory, they said. But behind that glass plate, in the silence of the photographer's studio, was there something else? Was this just mourning, or was it ritual? You must understand something. Death photography was not a novelty. Families captured corpses as if they were still among the living, clinging to illusion. But the twins, they are different, because the photograph whispers. It does not soothe, it accuses. Look closer, and the image is too clear. The pupils, sharpened, almost aware. This was not preservation of love. This was exhibition of possession. Who were these children supposed to be? And why, in a country drowning in blood, did their stillness command so much attention? There is a secret, buried in plain sight. Images have power. The lens was never just invention, it was invocation. And when you stare too long into those eyes, you feel it. The same technology that comforts the grieving can also bind the dead to the living. Those twins, never meant to speak, became eternal witnesses. They are staring at you now, even across centuries. You were never meant to hear this, but photography, especially in its infancy, was an occult act. They called it capturing an image. Think about that word, capture. To seize, to trap. Those stillborn twins were trap, ped not just in memory, but in something darker. They were stillborn, yet they were kept alive, in the only way the age of shadows knew how, through binding, through ritual, through picture. And once you understand this, once you know how the first cameras worked, not just as instruments of memory, but as weapons of control, you can't ever go back, because you'll see it everywhere. The power of the image, from then until now, was never about remembering, it was about ownership. You've been told that the Victorian era was an age of mourning, of black veils and somber rituals, of mothers clutching photographs of their dead babies because it was the only way to remember them. That is the surface story. But the surface is always a mask. Beneath it, a hidden current flowed, one that understood the photograph not just as a memento, but as a doorway. In parlors across Europe and America, photographers did not simply take images of the dead. They arranged them, they posed them, they opened their eyes, they placed tokens, pins, ribbons, coins on the bodies. Little gestures, small acts, but every small act is a symbol, and every symbol is a key. The stillborn twins of 1865 were no exception. Their photograph wasn't just a mother's last keepsake. It was an invitation. Look at the faint symbols stitched into their tiny burial cloth. Crosses, yes, but also triangles, an inverted star, not random, not decoration. And the photographer, a man whose name appears only once in census records, vanished 2 years later. Some say he left the trade, some say he died, but his work remains, a handful of images scattered in private collections, each one featuring eyes that look back at you as if consciousness flickered in a body already gone. Here's what they won't tell you. In the mid-19th century, photography was considered by some secret societies a kind of sympathetic magic. The exposure to light was believed to imprint not only the image, but the soul of the subject onto the plate. When the subject was living, that meant a fragment of vitality. When the subject was dead, it meant tethering something that was supposed to be free. The photograph, then, wasn't a remembrance. It was a binding spell. And twins, especially stillborn twins, held a special fascination. In folklore, twins were considered liminal beings, half here, half elsewhere. Taking their image was like reaching across the veil. Understand this, and you'll understand why you've always felt unsettled by those old daguerreotypes, the ones where the children seem too still, too aware. That unease is not just creepiness, it's recognition. Recognition that you are looking at a practice whose true purpose has been scrubbed from official history, because the elite of the time weren't only burying their dead, they were experimenting with them, learning from them, using them as vessels for a new kind of power. Every image you've ever seen, the ones that move you, haunt you, control you, is built on this foundation. You thought photography was born neutral, a mirror for truth. No. It was born in ritual, in silence, in the hands of men who knew exactly what they were capturing. And if you look at the stillborn twins again, you'll see it. That wasn't just a photograph, it was a transmission. The truth you're about to hear is older than the camera itself. It is older than the stillborn twins of 1865. Because death photography wasn't born out of grief. It was born out of need. The need of the powerful to experiment with the one thing even kings could not control, the soul. And what better moment to intervene than at the threshold of death, when a life has just slipped through but the body is still warm, still liminal, still reachable. When the camera appeared, it did not arrive in a vacuum. It arrived into a world already saturated with secret orders, hidden lodges, and societies whose names you'll never read in a history book. The same groups funding mesmerism, seances, and scientific spiritualism also quietly funded the earliest photographic studios. Publicly, they called it art. Privately, they called it the work. The twins' photograph from 1865 is one of only 3 surviving images of that specific ritual, though most people would never recognize it as such. Look closer at the props, the candle in the corner, not lit but blackened with soot, the placement of their hands, not in prayer but in a sigil pattern used in an obscure Masonic rite. These are not coincidences. These were instructions. Each child arranged to mirror the other, their open eyes meant to witness and record across the threshold of death. Why twins? Because in ancient systems, from Babylon to rural Appalachia, twins represented a living key. 2 bodies, 1 origin. One dying meant the other's soul could pull from beyond. The fact that these twins were stillborn made them even more potent because they had never been baptized, never named, never claimed. In certain circles, that meant they were pure vessels. And who benefited? Not grieving families, institutions. The same churches who preached salvation were quietly sending emissaries to fund experimental photography. Wealthy industrialists collected the images, believing they could harness what they called psychic residue. Even early government agencies flirted with it, disguised as medical documentation. The lesson is simple. What you are told is memory is often surveillance. What you are told is mourning is often harvesting. Even in 1865, the camera was more than a device. It was a ritual of control. And now, when you scroll, when you post, when you photograph yourself, you are feeding that same system. It no longer needs the dead. It takes from the living. The ritual did not stay in the shadows. It evolved. What began in shuttered parlors with cold bodies and black drapes became, by the early 20th century, the backbone of an empire built on images. The stillborn twins of 1865 were only an early experiment. What followed was industrialized. The same hands that pried open their eyelids were replaced by new hands, editors, advertisers, propagandists. The technique changed. The intention did not. Mass media was the natural next step. Newspapers first, then cinema, then television, now your phone. The technology advanced, but the premise remained. Control the image, control the perception, control the soul. In the age of daguerreotypes, they tethered the dead. In the age of cinema, they tethered the living. The power wasn't just in what you saw, but in how you saw it. Ask yourself this: why do certain images go viral? Why do some tragedies receive endless coverage while others disappear in silence? Why do you remember a photograph more than the event it depicts? Because the image is not just a record, it's an implant. It shapes memory, rewrites it, colonizes it. This is not conspiracy. This is documented. The British War Propaganda Bureau in 1914 was staffed by writers, artists, and photographers explicitly told to manufacture public sentiment. Hollywood was subsidized during World War II to produce morale films. You think this was about entertainment? It was about ritual at scale. And the twins? They are the blueprint. The innocent bodies posed for the lens became the template for you, posed for the lens, eyes wide open, unaware of what's being done. The early photographers learned that if they could provoke an emotional jolt, they could bypass thought and go straight to the soul. Every advertisement, every movie trailer, every viral clip you see today is built on that same trigger. Bypass the conscious, capture the unconscious. Capture. Always that word. They say the camera never lies, but the camera was born in ritual, and rituals don't tell the truth. They shape it. They tell a story that becomes reality. In 1865, the stillborn twins' open eyes were meant to be a gateway. In 2025, your open eyes on a glowing screen are the same. In the next section, you'll understand exactly why you felt that unease, the one that lingers when you see an image you can't forget. That's not discomfort, that's recognition. Recognition that the lens is not passive, it's predatory. Symbols, always symbols. In the photograph of the stillborn twins, the cloth folds form triangles. The candle sits unlit. The eyes are fixed forward. Every element deliberate, every placement intentional. This is how ritual hides in plain sight, through symbols that speak directly to the unconscious. The Victorians used cloth, pins, and postures. Today, it's logos, colors, and algorithms. You think you're scrolling through harmless images. In reality, you're walking through a cathedral built for your attention, each pixel a stained glass window designed to evoke a response. Those who arranged the twins' photograph knew something that the elite have never forgotten. Symbolism bypasses logic. It moves straight to the nervous system. This is why secret orders have always used it. Why flags, crests, corporate brands, even national emblems carry the same geometry as old occult diagrams. They're not just decoration, they're instruction, a signal to the subconscious. Submit, remember, obey. And when you like an image, when you share it, you're not simply reacting, you're participating. A ritual isn't complete until the witness responds. That's the key the early photographers understood. The twins' photograph wasn't only to bind the souls of the dead, it was to bind the gaze of the living. Anyone who saw the image became part of it. A chain reaction of attention looping across decades. Now multiply that by billions of eyes, billions of clicks. That is the modern equivalent of the ritual. Here's the part that unsettles even me. The system no longer needs the priests. It no longer needs the hidden orders. The ritual runs itself. The algorithms, the invisible priests of the digital temple, arrange, recommend, amplify. They know exactly which images will bypass your conscious thought and go straight to the limbic system. They know which symbols will hook you, because you've too reined them. Look back at the twins. Look back at their unblinking eyes. That was a test run, a prototype of what we now live in. You think you're looking at history, but history was looking forward at you, at us. It built the framework we're now inside of. And this is where I need you to pause, because from this point on, the knowledge gets heavier, more dangerous. If you're still here, you're ready. But before we go deeper, prove it. Comment, eyes wide open, twice below. Not once, twice. It's not a gimmick. It's a signal, like the symbols in the photograph, that you're ready to move from passive witness to active participant. You've spoken the phrase, eyes wide open, twice. That's more than a comment. It's an oath. You've stepped across the threshold, and there is no going back. What I'm about to show you will shift how you see every image, every screen, every institution that has ever claimed to hold your trust. Because here is the brutal truth. Those early photographs of the dead were not isolated oddities. They were blueprints for psychological warfare. The Stillborn twins of 1865 were not merely preserved, they were weaponized. Their eyes, forced open, became a study in the mechanics of human attention. The question was simple. How long can a gaze hold power over the living? The answer changed everything. Governments took notice. Secret societies already knew. And by the early 20th century, the lessons of death photography had been reborn in propaganda. Think about the iconic war posters, the finger pointing directly at you, the soldier's wide, pleading eyes, the starving child staring into the camera. These weren't just images. They were engineered confrontations. They replicated the same unease provoked by the twins, forcing you to look, forcing you to respond. And once you respond, you're caught. You belong to the image. Modern institutions didn't stop there. They industrialized the process. With film, they learned to control not just a still moment, but time itself. With television, they entered your living room and rewired your rhythms. With the internet, they pierced through every boundary of private life. And now, with the phone in your hand, they don't wait for you to enter the temple. You carry the temple with you, always watching, always binding. Think carefully about what happens to your body when you scroll past a shocking photograph, a horrific headline, an image that lingers. Your stomach drops, your chest tightens, for a moment your soul contracts. That sensation is not random, it is engineered. The same way the open eyes of the stillborn twins unsettled grieving parents, these images are designed to bypass choice, to pierce you. This is not art. It's ritualized manipulation. And the most chilling part? The rituals no longer require death. You, alive, breathing, unaware, are the new subject. Your face, your clicks, your digital trail. Every post you make is a self-offered photograph. Every selfie is a binding act. And you volunteered. This is why most men never awaken. They think they're watching the show, but the show is watching them, and binding them, one image at a time. Now we come to the hidden hands, the ones who inherited the ritual and scaled it until it covered the earth. You've seen their symbols without knowing their names. You've heard their slogans without realizing their roots. They are not one group, not one cabal, but a lineage of institutions, each passing down the same blueprint. Bind through image, govern through perception. In the late 19th century, the photographers were just craftsmen. By the early 20th, they were priests without vestments, working for newspapers, governments, and corporations. The images they produced shaped wars, toppled regimes, and built empires. The stillborn twins were not an anomaly. They were a seed. The idea that a single photograph could hold power over the soul became doctrine. You've heard of the Committee on Public Information in 1917, but not the private committees that predated it. Quiet rooms where social scientists, spiritualists, and industrialists sat together studying photographs of corpses, propaganda sketches, and ritual diagrams. They asked questions that sound almost innocent now. What images evoke loyalty? What images evoke despair? How can an image create a myth strong enough to replace reality? This was not just about selling products or winning elections. It was about engineering perception so deeply that a man would never know he had been engineered at all. The priests of old used candles, incantations, and bodies laid out in ritual. The new priests used cameras, headlines, and your own attention. And they learned something terrifying. It's easier to bind a soul that believes it is free. Every major institution you can name, religious, governmental, corporate, has refined this practice. They don't call it ritual anymore. They call it engagement, branding, public relations, psychological operations. The words are new. The architecture is ancient. The stillborn W's, his eyes forced open, are still here, hidden inside every viral image, every banner ad, every thumbnail that pulls you in before you can look away. The greatest trick they've played is convincing you that the image is harmless, that the image is neutral, that your gaze is your own. It's not. It's been trained, conditioned, and led, just like the photographer's studio conditioned the dead to seem alive. Now you begin to see. The image isn't just a mirror. It's a map of your desires, your fears, your unspoken oaths, and whoever controls that map controls you. You're already inside the seance. You don't sit at a table holding hands with strangers. You don't wait for the candles to flicker. You hold a phone. You scroll. You watch. And the ghosts come to you. Images, headlines, videos, each one designed to summon a response. This is not coincidence. This is the modern seance, scaled to billions. In the 19th century, the ritual required a dark room, a plate of glass, and the corpse of a child. In the 21st, it requires only your attention. Algorithms, the invisible priests, replace the photographers. They study you the way early ritualists studied bodies. They test, they tweak, they pose your emotions just like the stillborn twins were posed, an arrangement for maximum effect. They don't need incense or chanting. They have metrics, engagement time, click-through rates, predictive triggers, each one an incantation, each one a modern version of the candle in the corner. You think you're choosing what you see. You're not. The system chooses. It learns what makes you flinch, what makes you crave, what makes you furious. It learns your inner language and then speaks it back to you until you can't tell where your thought ends and its programming begins. This is not just marketing. This is engineering identity. This is digital necromancy. Look again at the photograph of the twins in your mind, their eyes forced open, staring across time. In that moment, the photographer wasn't just capturing two bodies. He was practicing on you, preparing the template. Because the final ritual was never about the dead. It was about the living. It was about creating a mechanism so powerful it could harvest not souls that had just left, but souls still inside their bodies. Souls like yours. This is why you feel drained after hours of scrolling, why your sense of self feels thinner, why you sometimes wake at night with images you never asked to remember. Those aren't random side effects. Those are extractions. Energy taken from attention, attention taken from will taken from soul. The digital seance feeds on you the way the old rituals fed on the stillborn. But there is a difference now. In 1865, the mother of the twins didn't know what was happening. You do. You're watching this, and the patterns are beginning to align, and once you see the ritual, you can no longer be hypnotized by it the same way. Seeing it is the first act of freedom. Now we pivot. Exposure without action is just another form of captivity. You've seen the ritual for what it is, the binding of eyes, the harvesting of attention, the digital seance swallowing billions. But knowledge alone is not enough. You must understand the mechanics of escape, or you will end up like everyone else, aware but still bound, angry but still feeding the machine. First, you must reclaim your gaze. This sounds simple, but it is the deepest discipline. The camera, the algorithm, the endless scroll, they all feed on involuntary attention. The first move of freedom is to make your attention voluntary. Every time you look at a screen, every time an image appears, you pause, you breathe, you name it. This is a ritual. This single act fractures the spell, because ritual only works when the participant is unaware. Awareness breaks hypnosis. Second, symbols. You've learned how they bypass logic. Learn to see them. When you see the triangles, the colors, the repeated numbers, don't look away. Name them. Decode them. The same way the old initiates learned to read secret glyphs in cathedrals, you must learn to read the glyphs of your feed. The algorithm loses power when you see its language. Third, identity. In the Victorian ritual, the twins had no names, no baptism, no ownership, pure vessels. In the digital ritual, you're told your profile is your identity. That's the trap. You're not your data. You're not your metrics. Reclaim your name, your time, your body. Speak it aloud if you must. I am not a vessel. I am a witness. This is not poetry. This is psychological reprogramming. And finally, community. The old priests isolated their subjects. The new priests isolate you through your screen. Break the isolation. Speak to living people. Build networks that are not mediated by algorithms. Every conversation you have offline is a candle blown out in their tempo. Understand, no one is coming to save you. This knowledge is not safe. It's not polite. It's not entertainment. It's a knife handed to you so you can cut the cords binding your sight. If you've come this far, you're not a spectator anymore. You're crossing the threshold the stillborn twins were forced to cross, eyes wide open, seeing the ritual for what it is. And when you begin to do this, when you begin to act, you'll notice something unsettling and powerful. The images lose some of their grip. The algorithm doesn't predict you quite so easily. You're not fully free, but you're no longer prey. This is the revelation most men never reach. The ritual of images isn't just about controlling behavior. It isn't just about selling products or winning elections. It's about reshaping the definition of what a human being is. The stillborn twins of 1865 weren't only a test of attention, they were a test of identity. Two bodies, no breath, no names, yet arranged and stared at as if they were alive. The photograph didn't just capture them, it invented a version of them that never existed. That is the true power of the ritual, to create an image so convincing that reality itself bends around it. When you see a war photograph, a celebrity's carefully staged portrait, a viral, authentic clip, ask yourself, is this showing me something, or is it building something inside me? The answer is almost always the second. The image is not a reflection. It's a tool of construction. And what it's constructing is you. The architects of this system understand a truth hidden since antiquity. A man becomes what he gazes upon. The priests of old built idols for this reason. They weren't decoration. They were molds. Every time a villager looked upon the idol, his inner world bent slightly toward it. In time, his entire being aligned with the shape of the god he thought he worshipped. Today's idols glow on screens. They are shaped by algorithms, not sculptors, but the effect is identical. You think you're scrolling for distraction. You're being sculpted. That's why the system obsesses over your attention. Because your attention is the chisel carving your own soul. Every glance you give, every clip you replay, every image that lodges in your mind is a micro-act of self-creation. And the system, like the photographer of the stillborn twins, arranges the poses. It decides which chisel strikes land first. When you begin to see this, the horror deepens, but so does the opportunity, because once You know you're being sculpted. You can begin to sculpt yourself. You can choose what you gaze upon. You can choose which images you let inside. And that choice, repeated over time, is the first step toward reclaiming your humanity from a machine that was never designed to leave you whole. Understand, the twins' photograph was the first warning. You are the second. If you continue to look blindly, you will become a vessel. If you begin to look consciously, you will become a creator. That's the fork in the road. You're almost at the bottom of the staircase now. This is the place where the ritual can be reversed, where the very principles used to bind you can be turned to your advantage. The same camera that captured the stillborn twins can capture your will. The same symbols used to shape your unconscious can be wielded as tools to build it, but you must approach with precision. This is not self-help. This is counter-ritual. The first step is deliberate exposure. Every morning, before your eyes meet a screen, choose one image that strengthens you. Not a motivational quote, not an ad. An image you select, something that embodies the man you intend to be. Look at it with full attention for a full minute. This is how you begin to reclaim the chisel. If the system sculpts you through unconscious repetition, you sculpt yourself through conscious repetition. The second step is ritual interruption. The algorithms thrive on momentum. You scroll, they bind. You scroll, they bind again. Break the pattern. When a shocking or manipulative image appears, pause. Breathe in, hold, exhale slowly. Say, even under your breath, I choose. This may sound trivial. It's not. That single pause is a blade through the ritual thread. Over time, the blade becomes sharper. The third step is symbol creation. The system feeds you its symbols. Feed it yours. Create a simple mark, word, or gesture that signals to your unconscious, I'm awake. It could be a word scribbled on your palm. It could be a phrase whispered under your breath before opening an app. It's your equivalent of drawing a protective circle before stepping into a seance. The old priests knew this. So did the mothers of the dead. That's why they clutched rosaries, charms, or photos. They weren't just mourning, they were shielding. The fourth step is embodied action. Screens abstract your soul. Action anchors it back into your body. Lift sums, anything heavy. Walk in silence. Write by hand. Breathe deeply. The more time you spend in your physical body, the weaker the ritual becomes. In 1865, the stillborn twins were helpless. In 2025, you are not. These are not tricks. They are counter-rituals. They won't just make you feel better. They will begin to free your gaze from the image's grip. And when your gaze is free, you begin to be free. Because the ritual can only sculpt the man who stands still, the man who moves, who chooses, who sculpts himself, becomes untouchable. Here, at the end of the descent, you see it fully. The stillborn twins of 1865 were never just dead children. They were mirrors, experiments, warnings. They were the first demonstration of a principle that still governs your life. Attention is power, image is ritual, and the gaze shapes the soul. Look at their eyes in your mind one last time, wide open, unblinking, watching, judging, waiting. And now you are watching back. That is the difference. The ritual of control only works on those who are unaware. You are aware. You have walked through the darkness, seen the mechanisms, traced the invisible hands, understood the chains. You have learned the counter-rituals. You have felt the weight of the binding and lifted it. You are no longer prey. You are witness. You are participant. You are creator. This knowledge is dangerous because it changes perception permanently. You cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknow what you now understand, and yet that is precisely why you must act. Your gaze now carries responsibility. Every image you encounter, every symbol you observe, every moment of attention is a choice. Will you allow it to shape you unconsciously, or will you wield it consciously? The twins' photograph endures because the ritual endures, but so can your freedom. The eyes that were once forced open by another's hand can now be opened by your own will. The chains forged in glass and light can now be broken in the mind, and in breaking them, you reclaim not only your attention, your perception, your identity, but your soul. So take a deep breath. Feel your body. Feel the power you hold in simply being awake. Because the ritual may have started centuries ago, but it does not end unless you decide it ends. And you, eyes wide open, are the man who decides. History whispers, photographs stare, algorithms hum, but you choose. Always you choose. The descent is over, but your awakening has just begun.